Gaming in 2023 has shown why live service games do not work anymore. And yet, gaming has been my favorite, yet one of my most expensive hobbies that I could have ever have. I remember the good days of being a kid and hopping on my Nintendo 64, playing Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or waking up to continue grinding Resident Evil 1 on PlayStation. As time grew on, companies realized that gaming should be heavily monetized and we need to make more money. We're broke. And it is the earliest that I can remember is when companies were selling a lot of, what was they called? Expansion packs. And at most times you had to physically go to a store, pick up your expansion packs, and even the beloved Bethesda Company has fallen to this by trying to sell horse armor. I remember that for sure. Or even, let's go even further back when old JRPGs back on PS1 required multiple discs to complete a game. Luckily, for a lot of people, we were able to get the whole disc collections in one go. I remember back in Final Fantasy IX, you had the 4-disc. Legend of Dragoon, you had 3 discs. Depending on the game, basically when I was younger. But at that time, though, when games released, they had to release in a form of a complete state, or it will reflect in sales. There was no day one patch updates, no saving the games for years on end with updates just so it could be good years later. Let's talk about like a No Man's Sky or a couple other games, So let's fast forward a little bit. Go a decade later, every company is trying to sell you half of a game and make players pay for the rest of the game with DLC, season passes, and much more. Companies then started relying on microtransactions to make more money from players, and this brings me to today's discussion of why live service games don't work anymore. Live service games are a type of games that is constantly updated with new content, often on a regular basis. This can include new maps, characters, weapons, story missions. Live service games are often free to play, which makes money through microtransactions, which are quite optional purchases that can reward players with an advantage of, or even just regular cosmetics, kind of like how Fortnite was. Or you end up in Diablo 4's case, or even Redfall case earlier this year, with a $70 price tag attached to them, being a half-baked mess, and mainly expecting players to spend money on this game as time goes on. While live service games can be fun, they also have a number of problems. One of the biggest problems is that they can be very addictive. Developers often use psychological tricks to keep players engaged, such as FOMO, or fear of missing out, and sunk cost fallacy as well. You see, these type of predatory nature in gacha games with the shop system, but when you notice that those same dirty tactics is kind of thrown into your favorite AAA game, you feel quite a little bit queasy, you don't feel too good. It feels a little off. Shady to be exact. So with these predatory nature can lead to players spending more money on the game than they intended to. When you end up spending more money on the game for what you pay for to receive the game, or even spending thousands and thousands of dollars on bad updates, quarterly season passes, lackluster content, and just a little bit of ways of trying to keep players egging on and on and on just to continue playing the game. I blame companies like EA and a lot of other companies as well. Blizzard's one of them for sure. The whole loot box system. Fortnite falls into this too because of them. We got the whole season pass system for the only got to spend money to get the better rewards out of the season pass for 100 levels. Definitely saying screw you to free to players. Now, of course, over time, as other people begin to adopt that live service title for the season passes, they started being a little bit scummy in those season passes. EA being, the company that likes to ruin a lot of good games with a live service model. So let's look at Battlefront. Let's look at Sims 4. Let's look at Battlefield. And many other companies joined and actually tried to implement a live service model into their games, and it just does not work. Another problem that I also have noticed with live service games is that they can be very repetitive. Once players have completed all of the content that is available, you will literally be bored. Once you hit level 100 in that battle pass, you complete all your quests, now you are at the helm of trying to figure out what else do I do, and you just end up wanting more. This can lead to players either A, altogether quitting the game, and as well as just overall just kind of becoming more numb to the game, and you end up just sitting there spending hours and hours and hours on end because there's nothing else. And I kind of point this energy towards battle royales and a lot of other free-to-play games as well. Live service games can also be quite unfair. Microtransactions can give players a significant advantage over those who don't pay. Now, there are some games where that is not as apparent, but there are a lot of other games that make it highly apparent that hey, if you spend money now, you would do a lot better in the game than not spending money on this game. This can make the game quite less enjoyable for everyone. Not only is the economy not doing the greatest, as is in the States, we're going through an inflation, we may or may not be in a recession, we can start to see a dwindle in live service games as they lose player base or the funding and outright shut down, which leads me to why live service games are going away. There are a number of reasons why live service games are going away. One reason is that players are becoming more aware of the problems with these games. Players are starting to realize that they are being manipulated and that they are not getting the full value for their money. Another reason why live service games are going away is that there is a growing trend towards single player games. Now, this is nothing new. Single player games has been around for ages, but it really shows that single player games are often more polished and complete than a live service game. They also offer a bit more immersive and rewarding experience for players. For example, games like Baldur's Gate 3 really put a heavy stinker on the rest of the companies, as companies were saying that is unsustainable. You can't sit there and make a game and just it's not going to have a live service model. No, it's just these companies aren't lazy. It comes down to incompetence and laziness. Indie devs have been shining bright with teams like Studio Sai, who makes a beautiful game like Eternights, or Sabotage Studios' second title in their arsenal, Sea of Stars. Just 3 indie dev studios, Larian, Studio Sai, and Sabotage Studios, dropped bangers this year and really showed that we do not need live service games. And with major RPG launches like Hogwarts Legacy, Final Fantasy 16, Tears of the Kingdom being also another few heavy hitters, it has shown the community and the industry that there needs to be a change. Finally, the live service games are becoming increasingly expensive to develop and also maintain. This is because developers need to constantly produce new content to keep players engaged, which has led to multiple failures across the board like Overwatch, Diablo, Destiny 2, Battlefront, Battlefield 5, Battlefield 1, Call of Duty sometimes. When games needs to be constantly producing new content, it can cause a lot of other issues regarding stress. Trying to get these things out in a 3-month time, you don't give these guys time to break. Not to mention sometimes when you got these companies luring over you, you gotta get something else so you can you don't lose your job. Every day we're finding out different people are losing their jobs in these gaming industries and all that stuff because they're losing money, which at that point a lot of the issues with the gaming industry is being exhausting, as it can be devs who need to keep up to make sure that player base is engaged. With the whales who spend the most to keep your game afloat, honestly, in my opinion, it's the free-to-players who keep your game relevant. And as a result, many developers are choosing to focus on single-player games instead. Now, there are a number of good things about live service games going away. Firstly, it will mean that players will have more choice in the games that they play. Players will no longer be forced to play live service games if they want to have a good gaming experience and not actually have to worry about the oversaturation of live service games. Secondly, it would also mean that players will be less likely to be manipulated by developers. Without the live service games, developers will have less incentive to use psychological tricks to keep players engaged. Thirdly, it would also mean that players will get more for value for their money. Who would have thought? Jesus Christ, it's not rocket science, right? Single player games are often more polished and complete than live service games. It takes years for these games to develop and truly there, because 9 times out of 10 these games start off as an early access. Then the early access stays early access for years and years and years and years until it becomes a complete game. Fortnite fell into this problem, Escape from Tarkov fell into this problem, and a lot other games are also following into that suit as well. But when you tell me that single player games, are often more polished and complete, they just offer a better experience overall, and that experience I am willing to spend. You cannot tell me that there's no way that games that are $35, $30, $20, even $50 are giving me way better experiences than a AAA title at $70 or a half-baked free-to-play game, which is fine. We need to help out people who can't always afford to play video games, so free-to-play definitely works. I'm not saying that live service is completely bad, because we gotta help out everybody. But once you start filling the entire gaming industry full of live service, that's where we start to see the cracks, and this is why stuff like this is happening. Overall, the decline of live service games is a good thing for gamers, but it will mean that players have more choice in the games that they can play. They will be less likely to be manipulated by the developers, and they will also get more value for their money, especially in these trying times. If you're needing a good game that isn't littered with supporting the game on a daily pace, then I highly suggest trying out indie RPGs or even big AAA titles that are actually good. Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty just dropped. You can hop into Cyberpunk. We have the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and as well as Rebirth dropping. Like I said, you got Baldur's Gate 3, which gives us like 17,000 possible different endings regarding that. Like, there's so many games that are out that are giving players way more than what they're even spending it on, and we have to just thank these devs, especially these indie teams. Live service games has their very own set of problems, but they also brought a couple of good things to the gaming industry. We have changed overall. There may be a little bit of a slight sway in what I just said, but honestly, it did bring something, because it made companies more hungry, but it also brought upon a lot of other good games that may have changed. Sometimes we need big changes in it so that we can grow from this and learn from it. Like, I don't mind Fortnite releasing, or PUBG, or H1Z1, or Destiny. It's just when the devs start to lose sight of the players is where it becomes a problem. Once you lose sight of players and you start to get a little bit too money hungry, kind of like what EA has done, or you screw over other players who spent money on your game, like a buy-to-play game. Like, let's look at Destiny, for example. Destiny was a $60 game. Then it became free to play to join into that live service model. Like, you start to move away from your main course, which is the community, the people who keep your game afloat. However, it does seem that the tide is turning against live service games, with players becoming more aware of the problems and new and innovative game models have been emerging. It is possible that live service games will eventually go away. This would be a good thing for the gaming industry as a whole, as it would mean that players would have more choice and developers would be likely to focus on creating full games that can be enjoyed without having to spend additional money. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. It's been real talking with you guys about live service. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Do you guys like live service games? I need to hear you guys' thoughts in it. I didn't mind it. I played a lot of live service games myself, but honestly, I felt like we need a break. We need to step away from it, let them go do something else, and we need to start filling the gaming industry with very great games, because there's beautiful games out there. If you want to check out other great games, then I actually will leave a highly good review that I've done right over here in the in the card here, and I have another review that I've done as well at the end of this video. But as always, it's been your host, KSDTV, here at Chaotic Inc., signing out. Peace.
Manifest. I don't sleep, that's so weak, don't plan to rest. I'm from a hood where you die if you don't pack a vest. No culinary degrees, but whipping crack the best. Chefing, hard times taught lessons. Praying every night to pull up in park Benzes. What's my home is what you call trenches. You wouldn't last a day seeing life through all lenses. It's all tension, no sun, and rain aplenty. Full-time job, still can never make a penny. I ain't rapping for